Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, President Donald Trump addresses the nation and the world yesterday as the war in Iran continues. We'll have all the details coming up. And a good Thursday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the program with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. Our program this morning is brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. A busy night across the nation last night as President Donald Trump addressed not only the nation but the world as the war in Iran continues to brew now in nearly a month after those operations continued. I think 33 days is the current count right now. So a little bit more than a month after the United States, alongside some of our partners within the region, most predominantly Israel, started conducting these very strategic and targeted strikes against the Iranian regime. Iran, as you are well aware, the largest state sponsor of terror anywhere in the world. There are various proxy groups like Hezbollah operating in Lebanon and other groups throughout the region. The United States has continued its strong military offensive against that country and against its leaders. And the question that has been asked in recent days, and I guess you could really say going back to the original announcement, the very early morning address that the president made on a Saturday morning about a month ago, was how long would this conflict continue? And that is what is on the line with this war, with this conflict, with these ongoing military operations. How long will this continue? Well, President Donald Trump delivered about a 20 or so minute address to the nation last night and talked about a variety, a litany of different topics as it relates to the war. And so I can recount it, or we can hear directly from the man himself. Here's President Donald Trump last night in the White House.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left.
I'm going to pause the president right there because this is an important part of the operations as they continue and as they on-go today and will for the next couple of weeks. You know, you can look at the pictures, you can look at the videos that have been released by this administration. You can find them all over social media as well. The United States, from a purely military operational standpoint, has conducted a very successful operation, which is, you just heard from the president, was decimating Iran's military capabilities, whether we're talking about their Navy, whether we're talking about their ability to produce either short, medium, or long-range ballistic missiles, all of those different sectors, they have been largely annihilated. And so we are looking at a situation right now that is really more of a ticking clock for Iran than it is the United States. Right, you're looking at a country who has no leadership, right, where you've got random individuals who just a month and a half ago were mid-level authorities within the Iranian regime, mid-level authorities within the Iranian military, who have now been essentially propped up to be the number 1 or 2 guy because everybody else has been killed. And so you've got a lot of kind of different chatter taking place. There's no real strong leadership that has come forward and is leading the revolution against the United States. As their military has been in large parts completely wiped out, as their navy is now completely gone, there's only so much time left. And so that's kind of, to me, one of the interesting parts to follow in all of this is how much longer can Iran actually keep up the fight, right? We see almost on a daily basis, they're still launching a couple of missiles, most of them being shot towards Israel, but other Gulf countries as well. We've seen that over the last couple of days. That can't continue forever. They have no ability to produce any new weaponry, at least as we are told and as we understand it. And I have no reason to doubt that information based on some of the devastation and destruction that we've seen. They have no ability to produce anything new. They've got no authority, no ability to coordinate any of these attacks or do anything of that nature. So to me, this is much more of a ticking clock for Iran than it is the United States, just based on the fact of how much devastation has truly been laid out on that country. More from President Trump.
Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before. Before discussing this current situation, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes. That hit was quick, lethal, violent, and respected by everyone all over the world. After rebuilding our military during my first term, we have by far the strongest military anywhere in the world, and now we're working along with Venezuela and are, in a true sense, joint venture partners. We're getting along incredibly well in the production and sale of massive amounts of oil and gas, the second largest reserves on earth after the United States of America. We're now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. We don't need anything they have, but we're there to help our allies. Tonight, I want to provide an update on the tremendous progress our warriors have made in Iran and discuss why Operation Epic Fury is necessary for the safety of America and the security of the free world.
And this is another great point, and something we talked about yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday's show. This concept, this idea of disarming Iran. This concept, this notion, this idea that Iran is not a good-to-do entity across the world, the global and the world stage, and a power that needs to be dealt with. A group of individuals, a leadership that has to be dealt with risks that they pose throughout the Middle East, throughout portions of Europe and Asia, much less to the extent the United States from a pure military standpoint. But as we've talked about, Iranian sleeper cells, their proxy sleeper cells are undoubtedly in the United States of America. Why? Well, because we let in tens of millions of people under the Biden administration. Individuals from God knows where, with absolutely no screening, no checks, no information on these individuals who are living in the United States right now. As these words come out of my mouth, they are in the United States, potentially plotting, potentially planning a mass terror attack on the homeland here in the U.S. And so for individuals, and this seems to be a meme for those on the political left that don't seem to be threatened or have any concern or fears about Iran, I don't know if it's Trump derangement syndrome or if it's just pure incompetence from these individuals. But this is absolutely something that you should be concerned about. Maybe I need to state this a little bit differently. Iran does not have the United States' best interests at heart. They want to see the death and destruction of the United States, the death and destruction of the Western world. And they have already said and have stated and chanted for years, death to America. That's who we're talking about. We're not that's the conversation that has taken place in a country like Iran. And so for individuals that continue to puppet this narrative that Iran is not a threat and has never been a threat, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know what you've been looking at. I don't know what you've been reading or what sort of evidence you have to back up those comments in any way, shape, or form. President Trump addressing the nation last night, and more accurately, maybe the world, as the war in Iran continues. Here's more from President Trump at the White House last night.
From the very first day I announced my campaign for president in 2015, I have vowed that I would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This fanatical regime has been chanting death to America, death to Israel, for 47 years. Their proxies were behind the murder of 241 Americans in the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, the slaughter of hundreds of our service members with roadside bombs. They were involved in the attack on the USS Cole, and they carried out the countless other heinous acts, including the just horrible, bloody atrocities of October 7th in Israel, something that most people have never seen anything like it. This murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. 45,000 dead. For these terrorists to have nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat. The most violent and thuggish regime on earth would be free to carry out their campaigns of terror, coercion, conquest, and mass murder from behind a nuclear shield. I will never let that happen, and neither should any of our past presidents. This situation has been going on for 47 years and should have been handled long before I arrived in office. I did many things during my 2 terms in office to stop the quest for nuclear weapons by Iran first, and perhaps most importantly, I killed General Qasem Soleimani in my first term. He was an evil genius, brilliant person, a horrible human being, however, the father of the roadside bomb, and he lived just horrible what he did. Iran would have been perhaps in far better, stronger position. Had he lived, we would have had probably a different conversation tonight. But you know what? We'd still be winning and winning big. And then, very importantly, I terminated Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal, a disaster. Obama gave them $1.7 billion in cash, green cash, took it out of banks from Virginia, D.C., and Maryland, all the cash they had. He flew it by airplanes in an attempt to buy their respect and loyalty, but it didn't work. They laughed at our president and went on with their mission to have a nuclear bomb.
This is an important part of the story that you are not seeing repeated all that much as this conversation continues to play out, as we continue to watch the situation unfold in the Middle East. You have to really, and you don't have to go back that far, right? We're not talking about something that happened 100 years ago. We're talking about something that happened within the last, 12 to 15 years with the previous, one of the previous administrations, as the president notes, Barack Obama, who did exactly what President Trump says. And did it clearly. Gave Iran pallets, literal pallets full of money in exchange for them to not have a nuclear weapons program. That did not work. You cannot placate these terrorist organizations, these terrorist countries, these terrorist regimes, which Iran falls in the category of all 3. We gave them $1 billion and said, please don't build any more nuclear weapons. Please stop spinning your centrifuges. Please stop enriching uranium. And lo and behold, I know, it's a huge shock to all of you. They didn't listen. They continued with their nuclear program. They continued refining uranium. And so it is important to understand how we got to this point. For decades now, the United States of America, and in large part many other nations throughout the world, have placated Iran. Right? It's one thing to talk tough. It's another thing to actually do something. And while not everybody across the political spectrum obviously agrees with this administration's approach that was taken, it's high time that something was actually done. And this is, a broader, a much larger problem in the political spectrum as a whole, as it relates to individuals that are willing to tough talk, but unwilling to actually do anything. And we've seen a lot of that over previous administrations, right? You saw it under Biden and Harris, and in that case, I wouldn't even say it was tough talk, right? When they were asked, both of them, Harris and Biden, what do you say about Iran and building a nuclear program? What is your response to them, Madam Vice President? What is your response to them, Mr. President? Don't, Jack. Listen here, don't do it. I'm hanging out here with Corn Pop. Don't. Same words from Harris. Don't. D-O-N''T. D-O-N-T is their response to the largest state sponsor of terror anywhere in the world. Don't. I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is what passed as strong leadership on the international stage out of the United States. Don't. Wow. I mean, you're not going to find a stronger message than that. You could probably go find a middle school football coach that can speak stronger than the previous president and vice president of the United States. All of that leading us to the situation that we're in right now that President Donald Trump is acting on.
His Iran deal would have led to a colossal arsenal of massive nuclear weapons for Iran, and they would have had them years ago, and they would have used them. It would have been a different world. There would have been no Middle East and no Israel right now, in my opinion, the opinion of a lot of great experts, had I not terminated that terrible deal. And I was so honored to do it. I was so proud to do it. It was so bad right from the beginning. Essentially, I did what no other president was willing to do. They made mistakes, and I am correcting them. My first preference was always the path of diplomacy, yet the regime continued their relentless quest for nuclear weapons and rejected every attempt at an agreement. For this reason, in June, I ordered a strike on Iran's key nuclear facilities, an Operation Midnight Hammer. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Those beautiful B-2 bombers performed magnificently. We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible. And they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them. And their race for a nuclear bomb, a nuclear weapon like nobody's ever seen before. They were right at the doorstep. For years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes.
And that's exactly the point that needs to be, and I'm glad the president stressed that, and that needs to continue to be the meme that comes out of this. Everybody says that Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons. Nobody was willing to actually move forward and make sure that that wasn't the case. The only guy willing to do it, the only administration willing to do it, President Donald Trump. We'll have more from him coming up here in just a couple of minutes, plus some of my thoughts on his commentary as the Nick Craig Show continues, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. But first, we'll grab a quick break. I want to tell you about the Law Group here in Wilmington and thank them for their continued support of the program. When legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the Law Group. Now, since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across the eastern half of North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense. If so, any of those issues and more, the Law Group has your back. Melissa Gott and her dedicated team ensure that your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, ladies and gentlemen. They're located in downtown Wilmington, and they're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit their website, lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or online, lawgroupnc.com. For any legal challenges you are facing across the eastern half of North Carolina, it's the Law Group experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate Melissa Gott and her team for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. All right, quick break. More from President Donald Trump and his address to the nation last night coming up after this as the Nick Craig Show continues. Again, streaming live this morning, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Nick Craig Show. Thanks for spending some time with us here on this Thursday as we continue and recap a coverage of President Donald Trump's address to the nation and the world last night as the war in Iran has now crossed 33 days. The president will hear in just a couple of minutes is talking about how much longer this will go on. But to really hammer home the point that the president just made there before we took our break about previous administrations and previous leadership, saying things but unwilling to do it. Here is Joe Biden back almost 2 years ago. This is April of 2024 when asked about Iran, right? Same discussion, same threats, enriching uranium, the possibility of developing a long-range nuclear warhead. This is what the previous president of the United States had to say as it relates to Iran.
Mr. President, to Iran in this moment.
Don't.
Are American personnel and assets at risk, Mr. President? Mr. President, are American troops at risk as well?
We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed. Thank you very much.
That's it. Don't. I mean, literally, he said don't, and then walked away from the podium as the press continued to yell questions at him. He came up and talked about our partner in Israel. That was it. That was the previous administration. Don't. Harris, I think it was a 60 Minutes interview or some other ABC, somebody like that, sat down with her and asked her a similar situation, a similar question, and her response was literally the exact same thing. Don't. That is the difference between weak leadership and the strong leadership now that you are seeing under this administration led by President Donald Trump. More from him last night.
As I stated in my announcement of Operation Epic Fury, our objectives are very simple and clear. We are systematically dismantling the regime's ability to threaten America or project power outside of their borders. That means eliminating Iran's Navy, which is now absolutely destroyed, hurting their Air Force and their missile program at levels never seen before, and annihilating their defense industrial base. We've done all of it. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Their missiles are just about used up or beaten. Taken together, these actions will cripple Iran military, crush their ability to support terrorist proxies, and deny them the ability to build a nuclear bomb. Our armed forces have been extraordinary. There's never been anything like it militarily. Everyone is talking about it, and tonight I'm pleased to say that these core strategic objectives are nearing completion. As we celebrate this progress, we think especially of the 13 American warriors who have laid down their lives in this fight to prevent our children from ever having to face a nuclear Iran. Twice this past month, I've traveled to Dover Air Force Base, and it's been something. I wanted to be with those heroes as they return to American soil, and I was with them and their families, their parents, their wives, their husbands. We salute them, and now we must honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives. And every single one of the people, their loved ones said, "Please, sir, please finish the job," every one of them. And we are going to finish the job, and we're going to finish it very fast. We're getting very close. I want to thank our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. Many Americans have been concerned to see the recent rise in gasoline prices here at home. This short-term increase has been entirely the result of the Iranian regime launching deranged terror attacks against commercial oil tankers in neighboring countries that have nothing to do with the conflict. This is yet more proof that Iran can never be trusted with nuclear weapons. They will use them, and they will use them quickly. It would lead to decades of extortion, economic pain, and instability worse than we can ever imagine. The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far, with no inflation, record-setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest stock market ever, with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year. It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming. They've never imagined it. Remember, because of our Drill Baby Drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are #1 producer of oil and gas on the planet, without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela. Because of the Trump administration's policies, we produce more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Think of that, Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And that number will soon be substantially higher than that. There's no country like us anywhere in the world, and we're in great shape for the future. The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. This is an important part of the discussion as well, right? When the conversation in some cases has now turned into, okay, yes, we've decimated their military. We've absolutely neutered their ability to continue to build armaments, killed a lot of their top leaders and generals. So now the question is kind of transition to the Strait of Hormuz and how that process plays out. As the president notes, rightfully so, very little, it's less than 5% of U.S. oil goes through the strait. And so the high oil and gas prices that you are seeing across the United States right now should be able to be dealt with U.S. production. Unfortunately, we're really not seeing that as of right now as it relates to the prices.
And won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. We've beaten and completely decimated Iran. They are decimated, both militarily and economically and in every other way. And the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before. Should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done, so it should be easy. And in any event, when this conflict is over, the strait will open up naturally. It'll just open up naturally. They're going to want to be able to sell oil because that's all they have to try and rebuild. It will resume the flowing, and the gas prices will rapidly come back down. Stock prices will rapidly go back up. They haven't come down very much, frankly. They came down a little bit, but they've had some very good days over the last couple of days.
Yeah, the president highlights something very important there as well, and something that you have seen over the last couple of days as frustration within the United States has grown with some of our so-called allies in the Middle East. We're talking about NATO, throughout Europe, I should say. We're talking about NATO countries. We're talking about the UN. We're talking about the European Union. These countries who, in large part, are addicted to and need this oil that flows through the Strait of Hormuz, unwilling to do anything. And that's why you've seen in just the last 3 days, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and President Donald Trump in 3 different media venues, a newspaper, TV, and a press conference, all 3 of them saying that it is high time that NATO and the countries that actually need this oil, need these resources, that they get involved in the fight and help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And as the president laid out last night, he is absolutely correct in saying that these countries, as always, are not pulling their weight, and it has become the problem of the United States to deal with almost solely. And that, to me, is a major, major problem. And so I'm going to be very curious to see in the coming weeks and potentially months how those relationships with our so-called allies throughout Europe, our so-called allies throughout the rest of the globe, what do they actually do to help move this process forward? Because right now, it's jack squat. They're not doing anything. They're complaining about it in their local press. Meanwhile, it's once again the United States leading the operation. More from President Donald Trump during his address to the nation and the world last night at the Oval Office.
We've done actually much better than I thought, but we had to take that little journey to Iran to get rid of this horrible threat. With our historic tax cuts, where people are just now talking about receiving larger refunds than they ever thought possible, they are getting so much more money than they thought. That's from the great big beautiful bill. Our economy is strong and improving by the day, and it will soon be roaring back like never before. It will top the levels that it was a month ago. I've made clear from the beginning of Operation Epic Fury that we will continue until our objectives are fully achieved. Thanks to the progress we've made, I can say tonight that we are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages, where they belong. In the meantime, discussions are ongoing. Regime change was not our goal. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all of their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force. The nuclear sites that we obliterated with the B-2 bombers have been hit so hard that it would take months to get near the nuclear dust, and we have it under intense satellite surveillance and control. If we see them make a move, even a move for it, we'll hit them with missiles very hard again. We have all the cards, they have none. It's very important that we keep this conflict in perspective. American involvement in World War I lasted 1 year, 7 months, and 5 days. World War II lasted for 3 years, 8 months, and 25 days. The Korean War lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The Vietnam War lasted for 19 years, 5 months, and 29 days. Iraq went on for 8 years, 8 months, and 28 days. We are in this military operation, so powerful, so brilliant, against one of the most powerful countries for 32 days. And the country has been eviscerated and essentially is really no longer a threat. They were the bully of the Middle East, but they're the bully no longer. This is a true investment in your children and your grandchildren's future. The whole world is watching, and they can't leave the power, strength, and brilliance. They just can't believe what they're seeing. They leave it to your imagination, but they can't believe what they're seeing, the brilliance of the United States military. Tonight, every American can look forward to a day when we are finally free from the wickedness of Iranian aggression and the specter of nuclear blackmail. Because of the actions we have taken, we are on the cusp of ending Iran's sinister threat to America and the world. And I'll tell you, the world is watching. And when we do, when it's all over, the United States will be safer, stronger, more prosperous, and greater than it has ever been before. May God bless the men and women of the United States Armed Forces, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much, and good night.
That's President Donald Trump at the White House last night as he updated the nation and the world on the ongoing conflict in Iran. A couple of the things kind of recapping it, the notes that I took away, talking about how it's time for nations within the region to stand up, especially as it relates to the Strait of Hormuz, talking about how 2 to 3 more weeks seemingly is the timeline for the United States to complete their operations and begin the process of pulling out of the region. No mention of boots on the ground at all. That's been a big thing that has been pushed by the dishonest media here in America, is that the president is going to send tens of thousands of service members to the Middle East to fight this war. That has not materialized to this point. No discussion on it from the president last night. And then laying out the next steps. If the Iranian regime, or whatever's left of it, doesn't want to play ball, if they want to continue to think that they can hold this thing out and just kind of wait for this thing to glaze over, well, then the president has told them exactly what he is going to do. He is going to target their electrical grid, their electrical system, go after that, and following that, or at the same time as that, go after their oil infrastructure and decimate that. And when that happens, if that comes to fruition, and we'll know that probably by the end of this month, if that comes to fruition, Iran will be completely decimated. There will be nothing left without the ability to have the oil production that they have now, with an electrical grid that would be completely decimated, a total blackout for the entire country, there's nothing left. And so I would suspect after the address to the nation last night and some of the pressure that has been ratcheting up from the administration, not only on Iran, but some of our allies in the Gulf states and in Europe, I would suspect that we're probably going to see some probably pretty significant changes on this thing sooner rather than later. Iran, to the credit of whoever is in charge right now, they have to know that this is not going to end successfully for them. Because as the president laid out, there's no more air support. There's no more real military strength within the country. The United States, and he even mentioned, simultaneously could cripple their infrastructure to the point of, years worth of rebuilding and support, and at the same time also destroying their oil infrastructure, which would mean that their economy would essentially grind to a halt, would practically cease to exist. If that comes to fruition, there will be no more Iran. And that is the kind of choice that those that are in leadership right now have. That's what is left. Those are your options. Those are your A and B. And I very much appreciate the president highlighting, that this is not going to be a forever war, because that has been one of my big concerns. And I think many of you having the same concerns since the day that this conflict was announced. How long is this going to go on? What is the likelihood of strong and large amounts of U.S. deployment throughout the region, right? The American people are not interested in that. We've just watched 20 years of forever wars unfolding throughout the Middle East, and the president highlighted that. It's been now 33 days since this conflict began, and the president says that 2 to 3 more weeks is pretty much all that is left on this thing. So with that being the case, by the end of April, Iran will have either capitulated to the United States and surrendered this, or the United States is going to be out. And for the Strait of Hormuz, it is going to be upon Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Israel, and all of Europe to figure out what they want to do with it. It's not going to be the United States problem. The president is not going to be dog-walked into reopening the Strait of Hormuz so that France can get a bunch of oil. If France wants oil, then get in the fight. If you're frustrated with what's going on, then do something about it, instead of sitting on the sidelines and complaining about it to France 24 and complaining about it to French media, the Mirror or whatever it's called. Nobody cares. Useless country, useless ally. And I hope that in the, once this thing is said and done, that we do have a very serious conversation about these allies, or these alleged allies throughout parts of Europe, and seriously look into the possibility of pulling out of NATO, pulling out of these alliances. And if these individual countries want to, constantly, slam the United States and not be there when things are requested, then it's time for the United States to renegotiate some of those deals and look at those relationships. So that's the long and the short of last night. Some comments coming in I want to get to. A popular anti-Trump narrative is that he's about 80 and failing mentally and physically. Does he look unwell? Don't you love that? This is coming from the same group of people that watched Joe Biden fall up flights of stairs, look like a Roomba leaving a stage, tripping over sandbags, bumbling and mumbling his way through 4 years in the Oval Office, disappearing. This is, I don't know how many of you truly remember this. I remember it vividly because I was just starting off radio at the time here in Wilmington. He would just disappear. You would go, I remember going weeks of doing the radio show Monday through Friday here in Wilmington, and you would never see or hear a word from the president. Literally nothing. Karine Jean-Pierre, or at the earlier portions, Jen Psaki, where they'd come out, twice or 3 times a week, have a very short press briefing, not take any real questions outside of those from friendly media outlets. And that was all you got from the administration. That was it. And that was consistently happen throughout Biden's administration, throughout the 4 years that he was in the Oval Office. And so now those same individuals that ignored that, didn't want to take part in those conversations, called you a right-wing conspiracy theorist for bringing those points up. Now they want to talk about Donald Trump's health. Are you freaking kidding me? This guy is going 24/7, 365. I just got an email a little while ago from the White House as to what the president's schedule is today. He, of course, addressed the nation at 9 o'clock last night, and looking at the president's calendar today at 8 o'clock this morning, right? So this thing was at 9 o'clock last night. It wrapped up around 9:20. I would imagine that he had a couple things to do before he attempted to go to bed. At 8 o'clock this morning, he had executive time. He's receiving an intelligence briefing at 11. He's signing executive orders at 2 p.m. And at 5:30, he's going to be participating in a policy meeting. That's the president's schedule for today. And so you've got these jokers on the left that wanted to ignore the Biden health issue. They can see the president's calendar. It's published literally every single day. It's public record. It goes into the presidential library, and now they want to talk about Donald Trump's health. No, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not seen any indication that he is failing mentally or physically. If he is doing one hell of a job hiding it from the American people, because you don't see it. I mean, when he does a 45-minute press gaggle on the Air Force One, where he's just standing in like a doorway, which separates the administration officials from the press who ride in the back of the plane, doesn't seem like he's failing mentally or physically. Standing up there for 45 minutes, getting shouted questions on an airplane flying back to Washington, D.C. Doesn't seem to be the case at all. But of course, yes, I did see that immediately last night when the president started. I saw a bunch of comments on social media. Oh, he sounds exhausted. He sounds tired. Well, yeah, he probably is tired and exhausted. I don't know that you would say that equates to severe mental deficiencies. I mean, I have no qualms about it. There are plenty of days, late nights here and there where I'm exhausted. You can probably hear it in my voice. I don't know that does. I know for a fact that does not equate to a guy that is failing mentally. When we start seeing signs of that, I will have no problem sitting right here on this same very program and calling it out. Unlike those on the political left, I can be an honest broker. And so when we start to see that, when the president starts coming out and doing events, or actually more likely stops showing up for anything, and you don't hear from him for weeks on end, and when he does show up, he looks like a robot. When that's the case, yeah, I'll absolutely begin that conversation. But that has not happened, and I don't suspect it will happen. So, of course, this is just a typical double standards for those on the political left. On to some other commentary coming in saying Biden and Harris's don't were quite the deterrent to Iran. Terrifying, scary, daunting, ominous, strategic. Of course. And nothing screams louder than don't do something. It's a strong message from the United States leadership. Another comment coming in, he's putting Europe where he wants them, and it actually comes down to AI. Interesting comment there. And, of course, Europe continues to be, in large part, just a useless area of the world. The European Union is some one-world government pipe dream that leads to these countries having no sovereign authority over their own land anymore. It's a complete mess. And finally, Trump thrives on these challenges. Retirement is not his bag. Yeah, absolutely. I believe that he does strive in positions like this as well. So the clock is now ticking, and I plan on holding the president to what he said. 2 to 3 more weeks. By the end of April, the United States has to have this conflict wrapped up. Again, unlike those on the political left, I'm willing to hold my leaders accountable. Right? The left doesn't have that, and it's why, in large part, I ignore when I get into any discussions with these individuals on the left, because they're full of shit. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They want to sit here and project about President Donald Trump, yet mum was the word for them when things were happening under the Biden administration. I'm an equal opportunity offender. And so if Donald Trump does not follow through with this 2 to 3 weeks as he laid out, which would bring us right towards the end of April, by the end of this month, then yes, He deserves criticism. He should be hammered on the issue, and I will be the one leading that charge. I have no problem with that. Don't say something's going to take 2 to 3 weeks and then have it continue for another 6 months. Now, that's not to say that there might not be some complications. That's not to say that the situation might change. And if that's the case, then the president needs to once again address the nation coming up here in 2.5 or 3 weeks and say, hey, I'm back. Our original plan was 2 to 3 weeks. We are continuing to make good progress. We've had a couple of issues along the way, a couple of things that are obviously very dynamic and fluid, and it's going to take 2 more weeks. And then at that point, that is how the president needs to handle it. And so I suspect he will if that ends up being the case. But I, again, have no problem holding the president that I voted for, the president that I support, accountable. The left doesn't do that. And so this is a good reminder to you, a PSA here on the Nick Craig Show. Anytime you hear from any of these idiot, moronic liberals about Donald Trump said that, ignore. These people are dishonest brokers of truth. They do not believe in accountability. They will consistently carry water and cover for Democrats and refuse to be critical of them in any way, shape, or form. We're different than them. We are absolutely different than them. And so don't give it any light. Don't bother arguing with them. They're dishonest brokers of truth. They will still to this day claim that Joe Biden did not have any issues when he was in the Oval Office. They will completely ignore that full-throated. And then, of course, these are the same cowards that want to talk about Trump's mental acuity. Give me a freaking break. I mean, seriously, give me a break. So that's the latest. We'll keep an eye on those details throughout the next couple of weeks. Oil prices remain a top conversation and discussion as well. Actually, I haven't looked at it this morning at the AAA gas price checker. Let's check that out before we get out of here this morning. Looks like the national average currently sitting at $4.08, 8.1 cents. 4.081 is the current national average here in the United States. North Carolina sitting a little bit below that average at 3.912 cents a gallon as well. So those prices continue to go up, and the president is going to have to figure that out sooner rather than later. On some other news, the things that we are going to be tracking today, the United States Senate has already begun proceedings this morning on a DHS funding bill. So that is scheduled to take place. I saw earlier when I was playing one of the clips from President Trump that John Thune was on the floor of the United States Senate, and that is going on right now. I believe so. We'll see what comes of that, as because some votes could take place on that in the coming days as well. So a lot that we are tracking, a lot that we are following, and here's stateside here in North Carolina. Coming up in about 2 hours for those watching live at 10 o'clock this morning, the General Assembly's Government Operations Subcommittee on Hurricane Response and Recovery is set to meet. It's not immediately clear what the agenda is, but I'll be keeping a close eye on that throughout the day. I'll be posting clips over on our various social media channels. If you aren't following me over on X, I would encourage you to do so at x.com/Nicholas M. Craig. You can also find me on Facebook as well. Just search for The Nick Craig Show. I'll be providing clips and updates if anything relevant comes of that hearing, and of course we'll bring it to you tomorrow morning coming up right here on the Nick Craig Show. Well, that's going to do it for a Thursday morning. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook. It's also available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Enjoy your Thursday. We'll do it again tomorrow morning right here on The Nick Craig Show.